Hello, everyone. I'm Jesus, and welcome to the next episode of The Road to Old School MTG. In this episode, I'll be discussing more about my decision of to choose the Erhnamgeddon deck as my deck for to create for the old school format, and then I'm going to go over three different versions in terms of budget, a very budget deck, mid tier, and then the most a more expensive, most optimal version. So I'm going to go over their pros and cons, their differences, price differences as well. So let's get started with that. So first of all, look the videos that I researched to get an idea of what to put in terms of the decks I got from these sources. So and I'll include them in the description for anyone who's interested in watching these videos. But they were very helpful. So here is where I found uh, a budget uh, deck version of Erhnamgeddon, Old School MTG, Erhnamgeddon video from Bright Days MTG, and then the top tier version I got from this video, white green Erhnamgeddon versus blue white red line from Timmy the Sorcerer. And then I paused it in this frame here where it includes all the pictures of the cards in this version. So the version that I'm ending up creating for myself, or that I want to create, uh, will be based more on this one, but eliminating the most expensive cards, which are ridiculous prices. So, but I'll discuss that in terms of my reasoning for removing things, and then what do I substitute them with, and so forth, right? But these are the two spots, the two sources that I used for finding deck lists. Okay, so first from this video, getting the the deck list. Right, so I saw the video. I copied down the list. Now I'm going to use my Cockatrice program. So this is a free program that you can use to basically test out decks, create decks, right? And then you can play them. You can actually play against other people online also, right? But for this purpose, I'm just using them to just to create a deck and then I will be testing them out, but just as a solo play, just me, just for you guys to get an idea of how the deck would function in real life. So, and also this is a nice way to give out the whole layout of the deck. So for the first version, the budget version, the only artifact is Soaring. Creatures, 3 Birds of Paradise, first 4 Erhnamgeddons, 1 Lanor Elf, 4 Savannah Lions, 4 Script Sprites, 3 Sarah Angels, enchantments, 3 land text, 2 Sylvan Library, instance 4 Disenchant, 4 Swords to Plowshares, lands 4 City of Brass, and then Forest Plains, 1 Strip Mine, sorcery, 3 Armageddons, 1 balance, 1 regrowth. For the lands, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fours, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 planes, right? So that's the full deck list here. All right, so right off the bat, so this seems more of a Winnie deck, right? So it has a lot of good 1-drops, 7 alliance, script sprites, they have flying, 1/1. And then your more powerful creatures would be the Erhnamgeddons and the Sarah Angels, right? It has pretty good ramp, so Birds of Paradise, Anor Elves, and Soul Ring. The land tag Sylvan Library combo is great for this deck, the Erhnamgeddon deck, where the point of the deck is to establish your the board, right? Bring out a strong creature like an Erhnamgeddon, a Sarah Angel, right? And in this budget version, also you can also have some weenie cards as well. And then once you're ahead of your opponent, cast an Armageddon, wipe all the lands away. And since you have other sources of mana, Soul Ring, Birds, Lana, or else, you can still cast things, right? So you're in a better position to recoup after an Armageddon. So yeah, this budget version is weenie, or white weenie, or just weenie deck with Erhnams and Sarah Angels as the higher powered creature cards, disenchants, social plowshares to deal with whatever your opponent may have. Okay, so here now I'm gonna go test it out. I'm gonna do three quick um, playthroughs just for you guys to get an idea of how this deck would actually function. Okay, so Armageddon. Oh, actually, I'm already ready to start. So I clicked on just one player. I'm not playing against anyone. Like I said, this is more just to test things out. All right, so I will draw my 7 cards. So this is a pretty strong opening hand. Either I'm going to Soul Ring or 7 Alliance. 7 Alliance seems like the best play. So this is assuming I'm playing first, right? So this is an aggressive deck. So most likely than not, you would want to go first. 7 Alliance on turn 1. Next turn, on tap, I drew a forest. So I'm getting a lot of lands, not so much other things. I do have a balance, right? So I have to consider that in terms of what I do next. So let me play a forest, Soul Ring, and then right, assuming I would attack most likely, right? This is the point of the deck. If they have a creature, like I would trade with it, it would be dead. If not, the opponent would have taken 2 damage there, right? So depends. And then I don't have anything else to do. So the next turn on tap, I drew another land. So it's going slow at the moment. Right, so I could play another land, or I could keep it there. With this, I already have 4 mana, right? So that's, other than the Sarah Angel, if I were to get one, I would drop a City of Brass. But if not, I would probably just stay there. I wouldn't even drop another land, because then it gives me options to do a balance, right? So then if the opponent is dropping more lands than I am, I balance that, and then the balance acts as an Armageddon, uh, kind of, right? So, and also acts kind of like a Wrath of God, right? So it's very helpful. So that's the first game, right? So that started out slow. I couldn't get a big board. I didn't get much, only 1 creature, right? So let me try it again. Start local game. You see 1 player only. Then I load the deck that I want, and I'm getting over here. All right, second game. Okay, so this is now less ramp, but more creatures. So let's keep it, right? So I play first, forest, Lana or else on tap. Second turn, so I have 2 mana. Sylvan Library, I'll drop this. So that and the Sylvan Library seems like the best bet. So for Sylvan Library, so the way it works is during your draw step, you draw 3 cards. You only keep 1 of them. The other 2 you put it back on top in whatever order you want. Okay, So that's how the summon library works, only during the draw step. So next turn, I untap. So these are the 3 cards that I'm drawing. So City of Brass, Forest, Forest, so 3 lands. I already have a City of Brass, so I would probably, so I'm going to put back a Forest and a City of Brass, so I just kept 1 Forest. So third turn, I drop another land. I got already 4 for my Erhnam, right? So then on turn 3. So pretty good. On tap, next turn. So I draw my 3 cards from Sylvan. So 3 lands again, right? So I would have liked to have a balance, or a Armageddon right here would have been a good spot. Kill all the lands. Then after that I drop a land, and I still have a Land of War Elf and a couple of creatures, right? So this one went well, right? But it would have been even better if I had gotten those cards. So one more game. Okay, so turn 1, birds, right? So not many creatures. So it's like in the middle. Let's see what happens. So second turn, Savannah. So I have a swords in case they were to have anything, or these 2 I could cast a disenchant, right? So there's a lot of strong artifacts in old school Magic, right? So disenchants are very important. So depending on what the opponent had, I could take care of whatever they brought up. Right, so second turn is done. Third turn, another Winnie. I will play this because I have a Sarah Angel. I want to get up to 5 mana, right? So I need 1 more mana to bring that out. Until then, this turn I would have script sprites, attacked, assuming, right, it was to my benefit, and just keep the mana open to take care of their threats. So that's how the first budget version went. Let me show you guys the pricing for this deck. So $413 total, not counting the basic lands. Probably, depending on what kind of deal you can get them for, or if you already have them, right? Maybe add another $10. So Soul Ring $15. And just to be clear, so in terms of the prices that you're seeing, I'm getting the most economical reprint for these cards that are still legal for old school, right? So I'll go over that after I explain the prices here, because that's very important. But so I'm going up to 4th edition in terms of reprints. A good website that I found is mtgpicks.com. So what I really like about it is that it includes the dates of printing of each set. So it's in chronological order. So most old schools go with the years 93, 94, right? So anything after 94 is usually not legal for this format. But it depends, right? There's some other formats that do allow 95 also, right? So if you go into 95, then you will get Homelands and Ice Age, right? So for the Necropotence decks, right? But in general, you'll stay with 1993, 1994. So although 4th edition is from 1995, it just reprints the cards from here, right? And the 2 main things that you're looking for the cards that you want to buy that'll be legal for these for in these formats are here. So let me explain this a little bit now. So there's 3 main formats that I can play, right? Or that I'm looking to play in. So this is the Swedish rules format. This one is the Eternal Central EC rules, and this one gives you Atlantic rules. Atlantic is kind of like an in between these two. So let's go with the Swedish. That's so the Swedish here gives you the sets. So this one is they do not allow reprints. So I basically am priced out of the Swedish um, um, uh, format because I don't intend to buy uh, a lot of these cards, even in revised, they're very expensive, right? So they don't let you play from Chronicles. You can't use fourth edition, right? So they're very strict, 93, 94 only, right? And then these are the sets that you can get, right? And no reprints allowed other than from these sets. And then this is the restricted list, banned list. Banned is basically anything that has anti. Right. So this Swedish, unless they're lenient. Some people are. Um, Usually, though, as is, I would not be participating in Swedish um, format because of um, the prices for the cards here. Okay, so Eternal Central rules. So the sets that you're allowed to use are Alpha, Beta, Unlimited. They do let you use Collector's Edition, so that's important. I'll let you guys know about this. Arabian Nights, you can use Revise for this one. For this one, you cannot use Revise. Only Alpha, Beta, Unlimited. So Revised, and in addition, additional sets reprints. So in addition, you can go further than these sets um, by for reprints, right? So fourth edition uh, would work. But the things to watch out for here for the reprints that you're allowed is that it must still match the art and frame, the card frame from their original printing, right? Which would be from these sets, right? So that's why I only go up to fourth edition in terms of how further away I'm willing to go with the cards that I choose to buy. And this website again is very helpful for that. If I go to fourth edition, click on it, you'll see a list of all the cards. You can click on all by color. So fourth edition, Armageddon. It looks exactly the same as, let's say, revised. There it is, right? So the difference is, right, the colors are more washed out in the earlier sets, but the card looks identical. If I go more into the fifth edition and so forth, um, so let's take a quick look at that. There we go, fifth. It's subtle, but the card frame is a little different. So if anybody online knows more about this, if fifth edition will still be legal, let me know about that. But the frames is slightly different. The art and text area is they're they're just as wide. In the earlier sets, um, the art area is wider than the text, right? So little things like that, but you have to be careful because that's the reprint rules for these older sets, right? You might commit and buy something and then realize you can't use them, and then you got to go buy them again in the legal format that you need them, right? So just be careful of that. Uh, for me, just to stay on the safe side, I know up to fourth edition is fine. So, and difference between in prices fourth and fifth and even sixth is like very small anyway, right? So might as well just Fourth edition seems fine, at least for me. So that's the reprint policy for EC rules. And then it gives you the banned and restricted list, which are similar, just kind of a couple little differences here and there. Right, definitely check out these websites to for more in depth if you're choosing to do a different deck, right? So and then you want to double check what you're allowed. Go to these websites. That's why I'm displaying them here because they were a very good source of information. Now for the Atlantic rules, so this is an in between the Swedish and EC rules. So the Swedish does not allow falling empires, even though that was in 1994. I'm not sure why. Right, you see, goes up to the dark, right, and you can do revised. In the EC Central, you can do those too. It lets you use falling empires. You can use revised, and lets you go older back into the reprints, right? But it has to match the look of the original cards, right? So same art and same frame look. So for the Atlantic rules, so first of all, in terms of the reprints, so they could, from what my understanding is, they usually allow the reprints, right? But it depends, right? So it could be either or. So it could be more like the Swedish model where they're more strict that you can go do revised or fourth edition, or they could let you, right? So it depends. I'm thinking it's more like EC where you can use those, but this gives you a nice little graph of the main differences, right? And that's just in terms of the rules and which important cards are allowable or not. So, and they have all three formats here, so you can compare them. And then Atlantic is right in the middle. So strip mine is an important card. You only have one of in Atlantic and Swedish. It's restricted, but it's not restricted in EC. Fallen Empires is allowed in EC and Atlantic, not allowed in Swedish, like we mentioned. Mana Burn is active in EC and Atlantic, not active in Swedish, which that's another reason why I'm not liking the Swedish format too much, right? Because I remember Mana Burn, and to eliminate that, I think it's pretty big for me. Recall, you're allowed 4 of in Swedish and Atlantic only, but it's restricted in EC. Mishra's Factory only is restricted in Swedish. Time Vault restricted in EC. Shahrazad restricted in Swedish. So that's the main differences. And then, like I mentioned, the reprint policy may be leaning more towards the Swedish or more towards the EC formats, right? But I'm thinking it's more on the EC side. Other than that, right? So it's basically very similar, restricted and ban lists. Okay, so understanding that, hopefully now the pricings here make more sense, right? So I'm going as far back as fourth edition to find reprints, right? So I'm using fourth edition, Chronicles, revised. Some of these are only revised, things like that. Okay, so the prices you're seeing here are for the furthest back reprints that are still legal according to the rules, right? However, Swedish, I definitely wouldn't be able. This would not fly in Swedish, right? So just keep that in mind. But you're good for Atlantic and EC. So, right, so Soul Ring, I believe it's up to unlimited, right? So $15, and also the pricings here, right? So these are the cheapest, right? But assuming the cards are in decent condition, right? So light play, medium play, even heavily played, depends, right? You have to look whenever I'm going to go to the next step to actually buy the cards. You have to look at the photos provided, both sides, to see the condition of the card, right? I've seen some people mark things as HP, heavily played, and then I look at it and it seems moderately played to me, right? So it's, it's different people have give a little more leeway in terms of, how they would classify things, right? But in general, these are the prices for decently priced, not mint prices for the most part, right? The cheap ones, you can't get them in mint for some of these prices, right? But in general, those are right. Those are the two conditions that I'm looking towards: the furthest back reprints that I can legally get, and looking at decent condition at least. Something that's more heavily played, probably you can get it even cheaper, but it wouldn't be worth it for me, right? So, but you guys may choose differently. So, Ring $15 versus Paradise, you can get them around 12. Erhnamgeddon's Chronicles, I believe, $3 each. Llanowar Elves, $1 or less. Seven Alliance around $4 each. Script Sprites, same thing, $1 or less. Sarah Angels around $2 each. Land tax, right? These are expensive, 30 each, right? Around that, right? So of course, if you get a Legends land tax, it's a lot more, right? And mint, near mint, a lot more, right? But in general, moderately played. I think this is either revised or unlimited. You can $30. So and American dollars. Sylvan Library $45 each. Disenchants $1 or less. Swords around $4 each. City of Brass around 20 each. One strip mine in this version, $12. Armageddon's $8 each. One balance 5 and one regrowth $2. I believe so. One strip mine, balance, and regrowth. I believe those are restricted, so that's why you see only one of here. $413 total for this version, right? And then you guys already saw it being used. So you could definitely start it off with this version, and then you can transition to the mid tier, and then if you want to even the higher tier. It's just swapping certain cards out. So the meat of the deck across all three tiers that I'm going to show you is basically the same. Right? You just have more power, of course, in the highest version. So consider that, but this is the baseline, right? The bottom. 413. Maybe add another $10 if you don't have any lands. Right, but it depends what you can get. Maybe you can get even cheaper, right? But basic lands are pretty cheap. Maybe $10 more for the basic lands. Okay, so that's for that. Now, looking at the highest tier deck. Right, so this is the more higher tier version of the deck. So looking at the deck list, Soaring has two moxes. They're restricted, so you can have one of each. These are extremely expensive, right? So that's already why, right? It's Power 9, right? So that's already shows you why this version here is the highest tier. So Mox Emerald, Mox Pearl, I believe, 3 Flower Stones, 4 Icy Manipulators, 3 Winter Orbs, Chaos Orb, this is another very expensive card, 3 Armageddons, 3 Sarah Angels, 4 Land Tax, 4 Swords, 4 Disenchants, 2 Sylvan Libraries, 4 Erhnamgeddons, 4 Llanowar Elves, 3 City of Brasses, and these are other expensive cards. Dual lands, right? Savannas, they give you green and white without any penalty. 4 of them. 1 Pendelhaven. So this land, it gives you green. You can tap it and it gives +1/+2 to a 1/1 creature. So this would only affect the Llanowar Elves. You have no other creatures that are 1/1, right? But it allows you to be aggressive with them if you need it. And then we have lands for forests, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plains. Okay, so let's jump into the pricing for this one. So 8,801 total, right? So this is insane price. And honestly, it's just 3 cards that bump it up, well, maybe 7. And those are the 7 that I'm gonna take out. Basically, everything else I'm keeping. I'm taking out the 7 most expensive cards and replacing them with what I think is the most appropriate for the card being replaced. So the main things to look out for here, um, the maxes each is at least 3,000, especially Max Emerald, probably more closer to 4 or 5, right? But 3, you can see them for 3. Um, Remember before on the rulings we saw that certain ones allow you to uh, certain formats allow you to use collector's edition. Okay, so you can get collector's editions of the Maxes. I don't know if they have. I think they have also collector's edition of Chaos Orb. So they're like 1,000, 800, 1,200. Right, depends. Right. So, but honestly, I would probably just either I would have Maxes, you know, Alpha Beta Unlimited. You cannot get them in revised, I believe. Or I wouldn't have them, right? So I'm wary of using buying collector's edition. Okay, so but that's up to you. If you went that route, then these would be maybe 1,000 each. The KS sub will be 800, 700. But uh, unlimited KS orb, unlimited maxes at this price. Unlimited starts at 1,000, right? So that's 7,000 just there. And then looking at the savannas, these would be the next priciest cards. For Revise, Revise is the furthest back you can get them at. Uh, Moderately played, you can get them for around 250 ish, so $1,000 for a play set of savannas. So these I also removed for my version. Um, Although these would probably be the 4 cards I would add the soonest back to my version. Right, because for 1,000 I can get 4 of these instead of just paying 1,000 for 1 KS orb, right? So this would be the closest to what I would put back in, right? But initially I'm going to take out the 2 Moxes, the Chaos Orb, and the 4 Savannas. So, but as it looks here, $8,801 for the top tier, and add $10 more for basic lands. Right. So let's test out this highest tier version. So I'm going to Cockatrice, 1 player. Let me double check. Yep, Chaos Orb and Moxes. Yep, so this is the deck. So start. So I will draw my 7 cards, 3 Land War Elves, right? So, and 2 lands. Flower Storm, Soul Ring, so a lot of ramp, but not much to do with it. But let's keep it, let's see what happens. Best thing to do would be Lana or else in this one, right? So once again, assuming I go first, this is like an aggressive deck. It's best for you to go first if you can. That's turn 1. Turn 2, only lands so far, so that's not good. So I could go many different ways. Probably another Lana or Elf. If I wanted to cast everything, I could do a Flower Stone. I'm assuming that the opponent has lands. I don't care what kind of land it is because I just need colorless for the Soul Ring. So on turn 2, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 mana. Untap. Perfect. So, well, not perfect. I don't have a creature, a big creature here, right? So, but it's up to you. Since I have so much additional sources of mana, I would probably just Armageddon anyway. 1, 2, 4. Right, everything's dead. All the lands are dead. Then I play my Penderhaven, right, and then I can maybe pump up a creature to attack, right. So that's where even if you don't have a big creature, this can come in handy. This is now a 3/4 attacking. So other than I didn't get a big creature, this went pretty well, right? But I could get a creature. Let's see if I would have gotten. Oh, there we go, right? A couple more turns, I would get an Erhnamgeddon. I could easily cast it. So this is why this is the top tier. Let's try again. Only one land. But still, so actually this deck has very little lands because it has so much additional ramp, right? So I don't have any white though. So I cannot cast that land tax. I could only cast green things. Forward Storm maybe, depends if the opponent is playing white. But let's keep it. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we can still do well with just a one land opening hand. Land or else. Next turn. Still no lands, but I can still do quite a bit. Soul Ring. Sylvan Library is my best bet because I can look for lands now. I will take one mana burn. So here's where the mana burn comes in, right? Because I didn't use one mana. If I, actually, maybe I could have. Let's see, could have. So I casted the Soul Ring, cast the Forward Stone, 2. Then I would have cast. Okay, so I could have done that play as well. Then I would have avoided the mana burn and have one more thing out, right? So probably it's the best bet considering you have no other lands, right? All right, next turn, untap. I'm going to draw 3. Ooh, nice. So still no white for Armageddon, so that's troubling. So I cannot Armageddon yet, but so then I would put back the Forward Stone, and I would even put back the Force, because the most important thing is dropping that Erhnamgeddon. One more gives me a land or else. So went pretty well, right? So I just need a one plains, and I only have one land out, and I can do all this. So very nice. Let's play a third one. So got a dual land opening hand. Yep, and that's the only land. So play it, land or else. Next turn, still no lands. Forward Stone. That's it. Untap. 2, 3. So I don't have enough. Just a little shy of for the Erhnamgeddon, but I could swords to keep him at bay. Plus, I could Winter Orb. Considering I only have one land, this is not going to affect me at all. At least now, right? So I could do that. Right there we go, and then boom, I could, and I have both cards. I have Erhnam and Armageddon. So Erhnam. Next turn I would have Armageddon. 2, 1, 2. Ooh, could have. Yep. Well, I only could untap one. Let's see what would have happened next turn. one, two, three, right? Because of the winter orb, I could only tap one, right? So this one, uh, it went a little slow once again because of the low lands, right? So if actually that's kind of why I want, I kind of tweaked that in my version, the one that I'm ending up, right? But you guys can see, even with one land in your hand, this can still blow up, right? So, very nice. All right, so now looking at my version, number this one, $8,801. But if I remove the seven cards I'm removing are the seven most expensive cards. The two Moxes, the Chaos Orb, that's already over 7,000 right there, less, and another $1,000 less for the four Savannas. So that's what I removed. So this is would be my version. Um, where's it? Okay. So 857. So a little double the budget version, right? So the deck list is the same other than those seven cards. And I'll let you know what I replaced them with, okay? But actually, let's go through the prices in general, right? Uh, so Flower Stones, $5 each, right? For the, once again, the cheapest uh, legal reprint that I can get. Actually, Manipulators, it only goes up to unlimited, I believe. So that's what they start at 90 for something that looks decent. Soul Ring, it's been reprinted, I believe, in uh, revised and um, fourth, so you can get them cheap. 15. Went to Orbisar 15, Birds 12 like before, Erhnamgeddons, they're cheap. Right, so these we've seen, land tax 30, 45 for the sound libraries. So everything else we've seen before. Oh, Pendlehaven, right? So this one wasn't in the other version, I believe, $30. But this version only has one. And I believe it's a legendary land anyway, right? So, okay, so now what did I replace those seven cards with? First of all, so for the two Moxes, I added two Birds of Paradise, right? So that's over $6,000. I took that out. $24 more. I added two Birds of Paradise, right? So birds give me any color mana. It's just once to cast. So it makes sense. Another way you could have gone would be with mana vaults. Mana vaults are not restricted in any of these formats, so you could have four of them, right? So that's another thing. But and I was considering that, but since you blow up your own lands with the Erhnamgeddon, and for the it's the for the mana vault you need 4 mana to untap it, right? It doesn't untap on its own. It costs one, gives you 3 mana when you tap it, but it takes 4 mana to untap, and you take 1 damage every upkeep where it remained tapped, right? So if you have no lands, you may not have those four available, or you want to do something else with your 4 mana, right? So that's something you could add. They go for around like 300, right? Maybe you could add one or two, right? There were two Moxes that I took out, so maybe one or two of those. I went for two Birds of Paradise. The Chaos Orb, I added one Strip Mine. And my reasoning for that is that disenchants will cover artifacts and enchantments. Sources Plowshares will cover creatures. So the only other thing that the Chaos Orb could have destroyed that these cards can't is a land. Right? Of course, I have Armageddons, but if you want to just pinpoint, maybe you don't want to use it yet, but you just want to get one specific card to kind of ruin their mana base, right? Makes it harder for them. I thought the strip mine was a good option. So that's $12 for the cheapest legal reprint. another option you could have done is also add another balance, right? So I think that would have been similar to, well, the idea of what the chaos orb does, right? Which is remove things, right? So for the balance, you can choose what your opponent chooses to, to get rid of. But if you notice, the budget deck had one balance, the the highest tier one did not, right? So you could add one more balance. It's restricted, so you can only add one of, but there was only one chaos orb because that's also restricted, right? So that's another option you could have gone. I went for the strip mine. You could go for a balance. Those are even cheaper, like $5. And then the four savannas, right? So four dual lands, not easy to replace. What I ended up doing is just I added one more city of brass. The highest tier had three city of brasses, so I added one more, another $20, and then I just added some more basic lands, right? Um, so that's the way I went about it, right? So that one, this is the least, you know, similarly replacements, right? So for the Moxus Two Bursts of Paradise, you can see the similarities there, right? Not as powerful, of course, but you can see the similarities. Get a get rid of the Chaos Orb, either a strip mine or a balance, right? So not as powerful, but you can see the similarities. This is definitely not the case, right? So there's not too many options here, right? Um, so and there were already three city of brasses, so I could only add one more, and then I just added, I believe, two more of fours and one more planes. There were very few basic lands anyway, right? In the highest budget deck. So having a couple extra is not so bad because you can work with the land tax and library combo, more options for you. And this version, right, with this the version that I'm using has one more mana, right? The strip mine gives you one colorless, so you can use it for that, or you can use it to destroy one land. As we were seeing with the those playthroughs, right? So I was almost always getting very low mana, right? Because this deck has very low mana because it has alternate sources of mana, right? But sometimes I had only one mana for like several turns, right? So I could have um, mulligan definitely, right? But um, it's you see that it's a recurring issue, right? So that's another reason why I didn't mind adding one more strip mine. Just gives me one extra mana that I can use. Um, which reminds me, Flower Stones, right? So this version has three Flower Stones. So this is another thing that you could substitute maybe mana bolts for, right? Um, the issue with Forward Stones is they only give you the color mana from a land that your opponent has, right? They don't give colorless mana, right? So after your Armageddon, your opponent has no lands. The Forward Stones don't give you any mana. And if your opponent has maybe like a, a land that gives you colorless mana, right? Maybe they have their own strip mine, right? That gives you one colorless. Forward Stone still doesn't do anything because it only gives colored mana and only from what your opponent. So let's say you have after you Armageddon, you drop a land, your Flower, but your opponent still has no lands. Your Flower Stone still does nothing, right? So, uh, right. So just consider that here, right? So you could substitute for maybe mana vaults or whatever you want. Right. So I just so this I think is one of the big parts that some people might substitute something else for. Right. But this was in the highest budget deck, right? So because even with the drawback, right, the opponent will most likely drop a land, right? Because if you Armageddon, that means you were ahead, right? So right, or else you wouldn't have cast it, right? So it's in the opponent's best interest to drop a land to start catching up. So the Forward Stone drawback will most likely not come into play most times, right? But that's something to consider. So 857 total, and this is the version that I'm playing, right? Add another $10 if you don't have any lands. But this is the version that I'm going for, so let's play test this version. All right, so there you can see no more Moxes, the Birds of Paradise, no Chaos Orb. Didn't even get any Moxes or Chaos Orbs anyway from the playthrough last time. But when I tested these before also, when you do get them, as you would expect, uh, very powerful. All right, so this is my version. Let's take a look. So I'll get my 7 cards. All right, pretty good. 2 lands, some ramp, and I got Erhnamgeddon. The 7 will be helpful too, so I can get a Erhnamgeddon, so I can cast the Erhnamgeddon soon. So first turn, let's see, Forest, Llanowar Elf. Next turn, ooh, there we go. 2, so no other ramp at the moment. The best thing to do would be Sylvan Leverage. I can get 2. So I need 1 more mana for next turn. Right. So if the opponent had a block or not, you would attack or not. Depends. Next turn, untap, draw. Ooh, did not get a land. Oop, my mistake. I gotta draw 3. Still didn't get a land, but that's a lot better. I would drop the Icy. I would drop the Llanowar Elf, and this is gonna be helpful for after you cast your Erhnamgeddon. Right. So that's all I would do on this turn. Nothing else that I can do. Untap. Third turn. So same thing. Right, so depending if the opponent has something that you want to get rid of, maybe you would keep the swords. If not, I would just keep the Llanowar Elf. Right, but it's still no land. So so I needed that. So no land, but 1, 2, 3, 4. I can already start Erhnam. Next turn, Erhnamgeddon. Get rid of the lands. Well, let's see. Next turn, draw 3. Oh, Flower. That's good. Maybe I would keep the Flower Stone. Right. So we got the combo, right? We did Erhnam, Erhnamgeddon. We still got alternate sources of mana. Seven Leverage is going to help us weed through our deck. So it went pretty good. All right. Not much mana. So a bit of a slow start, but I have a forward stone here. I do have this, right? So I just need a little bit more mana and Armageddon. Let's keep it. Let's see what happens. Nothing to do first turn. Next turn. All right, that's better. Tap those 2. I will take 1 damage. Forward stone, right? If the opponent is playing a green or white, that would be even more helpful. The forward stone. Next turn, untap. Another Winter Orb. So what you could do is, since you have low mana, you could, and you don't have it. I don't have enough for. Well, actually, I could cast Erhnamgeddon. So a couple things you could do. You could tap those 2, do a Winter Orb, right? So maybe your opponent tapped out, which most likely. So that could be a nice thing that you could do. Tap these 2, Winter Orb, and then the opponent's only going to untap 1 of their mana, right? So they would, and if they drop 1 more, they will only have 2, right? So you would then untap the only land, you would untap everything, right, that you had tapped, right? Or you could go Erhnam, 2 more damage to yourself. Normally with Erhnam, they get Forest Walk. You have to give an opponent's creature Forest Walk during your upkeep, I believe. Right? I have no forest, so that would not be a benefit. And that's another good thing with the Erhnamgeddon. You can get rid of your own forest. So the drawback of the Erhnamgeddon can be minimized or eliminated completely. right? So not bad. Here, I already got a threat. Uh, Winter orbs is um, a good thing to have to limit my opponent from growing more and more. Right, so that could probably be the way for this one, right? So kind of a slow start, but I still got some things going on. Let's see, right? Or you could have mulligan, right? So I'm not mulligan just so to get an idea of what the opening hand would be, right, for these decks. Okay, there we go. So third and last playthrough. Okay, I do not have the green for the Lana World, so that's too bad, but I can do Soaring, right? So we're kind of, uh, let's see if we can mulligan this time, right? See how that goes. All right, so more lands, no Erhnam, right? But we do have a land text, so that's good. So I'm assuming if I went second, I would I would play City of Brass land tax, right? Because then my opponent on their second turn they would drop another land most likely. So then when it's my turn, I only have one land compared to their two. So I would use the land tax effect, right? So that would be extremely helpful, right? So that's what I would do if I was second. Since I'm first, instead I would Lano or Elf, right? Now if they have a land tax, if they got something, boom, I could get rid of it, right? Just drop my City of Brash, take that out. Untap next turn, Winter Orb, that's pretty good. I can slow their things down. So a couple things to do here. I think the land text is nice, and I would Winter Orb. Right? Or if they have something that I want to get rid of, I could disenchant as well. Next turn, uh, I would keep the forest. I would only untap the City of Brasses more. It gives me more options. Right? So then depends on the land text if they had it or not. Right? You can get more lands. That would be extremely helpful because that thins out your deck. Uh, if not, okay, you got a strip mine, so that could be helpful, right? As you're waiting, you don't have the full Erhnamgeddon. You can get rid of some of their lands to slow things down, right? And then Winter Orb, of course, slows things down as well. And any artifacts or enchantments you can get rid of over here. Untap next turn. Okay, so in this one I didn't get the Erhnam or Armageddon. Right, so that's right, but then that's where the variables come in, right? Did I use the land tax? If I had used the effective land tax once, maybe twice, right? Because I only played two lands this whole time. It would have been that would have taken out three, maybe six basic lands out of my deck, more likely to draw, right? So all these variables, a real game will happen in real games, right? So this just gives you an idea, right? But that gives us an idea. So I think it performed pretty close to the expensive version of the uh, of this deck. All right. I think the what I'm removing is not so big, and it's still it's similar enough that it could keep most of its strength from the original, right? But at $8,000 less, right? Which is a big thing. As I was mentioning before, with the prices, so 857 total for my version, and right. So and then depending on those other variables that I mentioned, if may I want to mana vault 300 each, I might get a couple of those, right? Or you might. Uh, Savannas, those are the ones that are most likely the first thing I would put after having this deck. Just take out 4 lands and put those four savannas, right? Or maybe not all four. Maybe you get them one at a time. Whatever, however you want to get. But four savannas would be 1,000, so eight, so almost 2,000. So doubles this, over doubles this budget right now. Right, so you add that, then right, and that I might actually go that route. I might also go the route of adding a mana vault. So but this is in that's the good thing about this. Um, Adding those four savannas, I just take out four basic lands. That's not gonna cost anything. Like I won't feel bad that I spend money on something like that, right? So it's easy to replace that, add that in. Now your deck is a lot more powerful, and and you don't have anything that's spare that you're not using that costed a lot. All right, but the Moxes, that's out of my price range that I'm willing to spend. Chaos Sword, perhaps, but at the moment, if I had 1,000 extra to add to this deck, which is already almost 1,000 in itself, I would spend that 1,000 on the Savannas instead of the one Chaos Orb anyway, right? Either way, like I said, Chaos Orb, you can substitute it for a balance or Strip Mine, or maybe both. You could take something else out, put another balance in here, keep that Strip Mine, right? So there's variables here, depends on what you guys want to do. If you add a mana vault though, right, those are 300 each, right, starting at. So that uh, so you got to make sure you really want that, right? Or else if you end up changing your mind, you may have to resell it, or you're just gonna have it, not doing anything. Right, but other than that, this is what I'm envisioning my deck to be. It's very strong, and the Cockatrice is an extremely helpful tool, right? Like I said, you can play games with this also, right? You can go online and search. Um, there's leagues. I've used to play in tournaments using Cockatrice, and there's also other programs as well, right? But this is probably the most one of the most known, right? But it's in terms of for us for old school Magic, right? So since a lot of the cards tend to be so expensive, you can't test things. You can't buy something and then figure out, oh, actually, I don't like this so much. I want to do something else, right? Like I want this card instead, right? It'll cost you big time, right? It could, right? So those four ICs, right? It wasn't in the budget version, right? But they're here. They're like 90, at least 90 each. That's 400, right? So that's the main difference between the budget and this version, my version, adding those four ICs, right? Um, so that's where Cockatrice can come into play, right? You can all these I created on my own, right? Using the videos that I found online, right? Or just you can search deck lists also, right? I did that also, right? So in fact, that's what I did for when I was trying to figure out what deck I wanted to build, right? I built a Necroponent's deck on Cockatrice. I built another one, a Weenie deck also, right? So I tried a couple different things, Erhnamgeddon decks, and then that's where I figured this one is the one that I wanted to build, right? So Cockatrice is a very important tool. You can test things out before you commit to buying things, right? So um, to give you a better idea, and if you want, you can take it further and try to actually play somebody using Cockatrice, uh, and then you can see it more in an actual gameplay situation, right? What you saw with me was just simulations, right? Like me imagining an opponent, right? Which is gives you an idea, but it's not the true test of the deck, right? So you can do that too as well in Cockatrice. So that's another great thing. All right. So guys, this is my version, $857 total. add another $10 here or there for basic lands. But I already have almost none of these cards. I got 4 Llanowar Elves, I believe 4th edition. So I just say $4, and I do have um, a lot of planes and force revised, and 4th edition and revised. So that's now $10. So I have $14 in cards, not very much. So basically, the almost that full value that you're seeing here is what I'm going to be paying to create this deck. As I'm collecting the cards, things might change. I might opt for different things, right? Because the Cockatrice, I might, and play testing, I might, and just researching. I may I see something that somebody else did, slightly tweaked version, right? So uh, for a lot of these decks, there's not just one version, right? There's uh, a lot of people add blue to this deck, right? So that gives you a lot of so blue has a lot of power 9, right? So and they're cheap cards, right? Time Walk, just one blue and a colorless, and what's the other one? Ancestral Recall, I believe, right? Just one blue, draw 3 cards, right? So very easy to splash blue. Of course, it's gonna cost you like $10,000 to do that, right? But a lot of people do that, right? And of course, this version did the most expensive version didn't have um, the um, the I'm forgetting the name, the Black Lotus. There we go, right? Um, Actually, quickly talking about that. So let me go over to that deck list, the expensive. There it is, right? So if you look real closely, here he put a little tag: 2 points, 2 points, 2 point, 1 point. So there's a version of old school by using points, and that's just kind of to limit everybody having all the overpowered cards, right? Like having 5 maxes in every deck. Every deck has a Black Lotus. Every deck splashes blue just because you want to use Ancestral Recall and Time Walk, right? Because it's so easy. Just takes 1 blue to be able to cast those 2, right? So to avoid those kind of games, like a lot of old school tournaments or just old school communities use these point systems, right? Uh, the current number I've seen is 7, right? So certain cards have different values. I believe a Black Lotus, if you wanted to use it, will cost you 4 points. Right? You have 7 points total for a lot of the overpowered cards. Right? They have these values. Moxes, they cost 2 points each. Soul Ring costs 2. 1 point for the Chaos Orb, so that's 7. So he used all 7 points. So that's the reason why he doesn't have a Black Lotus, right? Of course, maybe he doesn't even have one, right? Because they're extremely rare, extremely expensive. But if he did, he chose instead to put 2 Moxes instead of the 1 Black Lotus, right? So if you know, so right, so this deck could be even more overpowered, definitely, right? Like I said, a lot of people put all 5 Black Lotus in their deck because it's just free mana, right? Even if you didn't, right, colorless mana is still better than not having it, than no mana, right? So it's still extremely helpful, right? So, but some people use this version of old school with points. So I've been researching that. It seems to be a pretty good idea to make things a bit less one-sided, right? But either way, those cards are so expensive anyway. Anyways, they're naturally prohibitive of people having those decks, those kind of decks, anyways, because they are so expensive, right? So, but uh, if not, then this format uh, weeds that out also, right? So, in case you were wondering why you didn't see a Black Lotus here or the Mana Ball, right? I'm pretty sure Mana Ball has some kind of points, right? So that's the reason why, right? So definitely, even though this is the highest, right, it could definitely be even higher, right? So this we're talking old school here, right? It's like, you know, the power level is ridiculous here, right? So, but this is the highest within reason, right? And within keeping with this point system, right? So, um, right, but I'm taking out the Moxes, I'm taking out the KSO, I'm taking out the Savannas. I may add them later, right? But you guys saw what I substituted it with, okay? But please check out these two videos that were pretty helpful in terms of explaining things, resources, right? And then they're dedicated to old school stuff, right? So you can watch other things as well if you want to build different deck. Uh, Also check out mtgpicks.com, right? It's great because you can look at the look of the cards, right, to make sure um, you know how far you can go to buy cards that have will allow you the legal reprints for old school formats, right? You don't want to buy something that won't be legal, right? And then you just bought something for nothing, and then you got to resell it or just take the loss, right? So over there, and then also these websites um, that included the rules, Swedish, EC, Atlantic. EC and Atlantic are the ones that I'm tailoring my deck towards. You could still play Swedish also, right? Some I've noticed some people um, they say they play Swedish, but they allow reprints, right? So it depends. Um, um, some might be more strict than others, but in general, according to the rules, Swedish would not fit for my needs. Okay, so hopefully this gives you guys a better idea of how all this will work. So now this was the research phase where I looked at the different versions of the Erhnamgeddon deck, how far I'm willing to spend, and what I could substitute in terms of the most powerful cards that I'm not willing to spend for, but then what could be also substituted that's either fairly close or or similar enough, right? Uh, so now the next step, I'm gonna start showing you guys the process of me buying the cards, showing how many, what's missing, what do I have, how much I spent, and those things. Like you guys know, I only got the four um, Llanowar Elves and the basic lands. So basically, that's basically almost at zero, right? Um, the From what I have for this particular deck already, right? So I'm basically almost starting at zero. So that'll be in the next videos for me to buy the components to build the deck, and then hopefully I can then find players to play and make videos on that as well. All right, guys, I'm gonna leave it up to there for today. Bye.